News this morning, and a story that certainly has gotten so much attention, not just here in D.C. where it happened, but around the world. The two teenage girls charged with the death and carjacking of 66-year-old Mohammed Anwar will appear in family court tomorrow. And we've been following this case since last week, and we have since then shared the disturbing video of the accident that happened near Nationals Park. But we wanted to get more into the mindset of all the people involved. George Mason, Associate Professor of Psychology and Forensic Psychology, Dr. Justin RAMSDELL joins us with more. Good to see you this morning. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
You know, there are a lot of questions that people have when it comes to this case. I want to start, and we'll break this down by person. Let's start with the girls. A lot of people say, how could somebody 13, 15 years old not just have perhaps disregard for life or actions or criminal activities, but you hear in that case the one girl even saying, as a man is lying dying on the sidewalk, I need to get back and get my phone. How do you explain this mindset?
So I feel like it's certainly shocking when you hear her, especially standing next to Mr. Anwar's body, saying, my phone is in the car, I need to get my phone. For me, that was one of the most disturbing parts of the video. And I think it's a symptom of the actual crime, right? Because if you think about what these girls did, now there are lots of different reasons, and I haven't spoken to the offenders, so I don't know exactly why they did that, but whether it's financial gain, social status, peer pressure, COVID-related issues, child abuse and trauma, there are many reasons why someone committed a crime, but there's a lack of empathy involved because they had a taser, they intended to use it on an older male to take his possessions. And so when you look at them saying, like, my phone is in the car, I want the phone, like, that's just a symptom of the lack of empathy that was involved in the crime. Like, here's a girl who's so focused on herself and her needs that she's willing to say those things. And that feels shocking, but it's really just an extension of what the carjacking was to start with.
Let me ask you this. These girls, and we don't yet know exactly how the legal system will play out. However, in D.C. and the way that this case has progressed so far, it's very likely they will remain in juvenile custody, which they could be held up until the age of 21. If they are not showing that empathy now, is it something that can be restored? Can they essentially be a changed person in the future?
Well, the entire basis for the juvenile justice system is rehabilitation, right? For example, juveniles aren't guilty, they're involved in crime. So that we hope that there's a lot of development that's going to go on between the ages of 13 and 15 and 21. Many of the factors that are involved, especially in juvenile delinquency, involve parenting, socioeconomic status, and this has all been made more extreme by the pandemic, right? I like to think of the pandemic as an amplifier. If your family was particularly loving and donated money or time to other activities, then the pandemic increased those behaviors. If you were under socioeconomic stress, there was violence in the home, then the pandemic amplified those behaviors. So getting these girls out of whatever situation that they're in and into juvenile detention may be the best thing. So I have hope that there's a chance that they could be rehabilitated and rejoin society, and that's the system's hope as well.
Another hearing this week. We will see where that goes as far as the legal channels. Okay, let's talk about the victim in this case, Mr. Anwar. This is someone who immigrated to this country, who was the sole provider for his family. It seems like human nature would lead us to fight if we're attacked, to fight for what we have, what we feel we have rightfully earned. And I know it's so difficult in a situation like this to look back, especially with a tragic ending, to say, did he make the right decision here?
So there are several situations in which people will defend themselves. People who are not otherwise aggressive or violent, if there's a threat to themselves, if there's a threat to a family member, if there's a threat to their possessions, then people have a tendency to react aggressively. And so that's not a surprise that he sought to defend what he used to provide for his family. And like you said, we shouldn't Monday morning quarterback the decisions that are made in extreme situations, because this is the exact reason why military train, right? When you get an extreme situation, we know from brain research and research on trauma that once the fight or flight response kicks in, logical thought and rational thinking are one of the first casualties of the fight or flight response. So whether he fought or whether he just said, you know what, you can take the car and I'm going to back off, both of those decisions are perfectly valid and understandable given what we know about the fight or flight response.
Does that just break down to how we're predispositioned or just our personality as to whether our initial response, and maybe the fact that you know, it's a 13-year-old girl and not, you know, a 40, 50-year-old man that's attacking you? I don't know. I mean, do any of these things come into play when we decide whether or not we're going to fight for what we have, or just say, here, take it, and I don't want to deal with you or this anymore?
But I think it's all of those things. Everyone has seen the videos of people getting scared and then like falling back through the doorway. But then there's also videos on the internet of people getting scared and then immediately hitting the thing that scared them. And those are temperamental differences that are largely just kind of hardwired into the person. But you can't discount the fact either that these were younger women that were trying to do it, and he may have felt that he could have defended himself. Whereas if it were a 6'5", 300-pound man who came into the car, it might have been a different decision. So it's probably all the things you mentioned.
Yeah, there's so much that's happening with this case, but it certainly has a lot of people talking. You're right. We don't certainly want to Monday morning quarterback it, but a lot of discussion has already been opened up, and we appreciate you helping to try to help us understand some of what's going on. Dr. Justin RAMSDELL joining us this morning from George Mason. Thanks very much.
Thank you.
All right, Jeanette.
All right, time now, 8:23.